Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Sorry for yesterday. A little bit of an ice storm here, actually, in my area.
We got some too. We got an ice storm too.
Yeah, we have no power because apparently our power lines were, we lose power at the drop of anything. So that was fun. But anyway, we're back. It's good to be back. We got Kevin Allen with us today. That's always a blast.
My niece gave me this for Christmas.
How nice.
When do you leave for the Olympics, Kev?
Not till February 6th, and they start the 8th, so it's a little bit later than we normally. Okay. So I'll pretty much get there and start. I'm covering both the women and the men. I've always done women's games, but this is the first time that I've done, sort of been the main women's writer as well. So that'll be, pretty much means it'll be hockey all the way through for me.
That's a lot of games. I mean,
well, yeah, it will be, but we cover things differently now in journalism. There's the emphasis on game reporting is
right.
Yeah, gone. Like nobody writes about the game specifically anymore. Right. Not if you want readers. You kind of write about what it all means. Yep. So,
right. Everybody saw it. I know we've been, that's I covered the women just a little bit in Vancouver, and I just thought it was so much fun. They're such an interesting group. I mean, they give great interviews. I mean, I think the women's hockey teams I found.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just interviewed Brianna Decker the other day, and talked about. She basically pulled no punches. She's like, I didn't even mention that they hadn't won a gold medal in 20 years, and she brought it up to me. I said, okay, now that you brought it up, and so like they're fearless. I think they're the team to watch more than the men's, because this is the team that trains for this. They've been training forever for this. They've been going against Canada forever for this. Like, I think it's the more compelling story to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I haven't done, women's hockey.
No.
I've done a lot of women's hockey, but and I agree with Russ. Like, I sort of admire that the women sort of tackle that 20-year drought kind of head on, because if it were a men's team, you would have to tiptoe around it. But with the women, it is what it is. And the reason why that is so fascinating is that, they won 7 out of the last 8 world championships.
Yeah.
Right.
So they can't seem to find a way to win at the Olympics, and Canada can't seem to find a way to win at the world championships. It's really a bizarre thing. But here's an interesting thing. Like in the pre-tournament games, Canada won all of them this time.
I know.
But it's pre-tournament.
0-4. Yeah, it is pre-tournament, and you don't know whether that means anything.
But there's been changes. I mean, Megan Bozak isn't there. Like, the U.S. had changes, so maybe they're just getting used to that, Kev, and they're going to gel at the right time.
Yeah, or just what it probably means is, look, it's a flip of the coin every time they play.
On the other side, it's surprising, and I know that it was planned to be a little bit of a delay, but if I'm not mistaken, the Canadians have still not announced their team yet. The U.S. did on New Year's Day. Not all of it, right? We have the goalies, but Canada still hasn't. And I know that like Elliot Friedman reported that a couple of the World Junior players, and we're going to talk about the World Junior for a little bit. A couple of the World Junior players might be on the radar for the Olympic team. One of them, and this was interesting, Sam Steele plays for Regina. Regina hosts the Memorial Cup. So how they do during the regular season means basically nothing. So that might make it more palatable for Regina to let Steele, or and for Canada to choose him for the Olympics.
You know what the flip side of that is? The flip side of that is they've got to keep Sam Steele healthy. If he gets hurt in the Olympics, and they don't have him for the Memorial Cup, they are dead in the water and they look horrible. So that's the flip side. So they may not allow him to go. I do have
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I have a quickie story from this morning. So I got a call from my wife saying, "Hey, can you go out there and resalt everything because it's pretty icy?" And I said, "Sure, let me go do that." And I put on boots and I'm all ready for it. And I'm going down my driveway and I'm salting, and all of a sudden I hit a slick spot and I literally do a 180, and the only thing stops me, and this is at the curb. If I go over the curb, I'm in the street and the cars are going. And the only thing that stops me is this little patch of snow, and I stopped on a dime, and one girl like opened up her window and started yelling at me like, "Ha!" And it's like that was a hell of a way to wake up today. But it was a little scary, but luckily the hockey skating part of me was able to regain my balance.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, I'd like to remind people, like I keep reading all these stories about, whether these junior players should come. You got to remember what the competition is at the Olympics. Right. Like just because they're really good junior players, they're still very young. They're 18, 19 years old, and they're going to be competing against. I thought Jim Johansson had an interesting phrase for it: guys that know how to not make mistakes, basically. And so I
like that.
I just don't know that there's going to be the big help that everybody seems.
Well, it definitely could be in goaltending, Kev, because that stopping pucks is stopping pucks.
Right.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but but if
you're good at stopping pucks, then you could have a job.
I was saying all that. I would have taken Middlestat. I think there's a difference between guys that are just top junior players, and then a guy like Middlestat, who I think is kind of a special player. So
and I got the impression from being in the scrum and asking a couple questions with the coach of Sweden during the preliminary round that Dahlin is on the radar for the Swedish Olympic team. I think it does not. Yeah,
I think he's already been named, hasn't he?
Was he? Okay. I mean,
he probably has.
Yeah, I think people are operating as if he's been named if he hasn't.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing at least.
Yeah.
I see on the TV thing on the television. It's not like an old person whenever I say it. They even mentioned it on the TV.
Wow.
Anyway,
they even mentioned it on the telegram on the wireless.
Before I do the intro, I have to say that like a long time ago, Kevin, you told me we should get into the Goldbergs here. The show.
Yeah, but you guys can't stand it. I know. So
it's almost too close to home. It was weird because we grew up in South Jersey. It's my wife's Jewish family. It was very familiar. We are like totally into it now. And it's weird. Like we just somehow something in the second, like we said, let's just watch it through the first season. Just like, let's just do it, because everybody kept, you and everybody have about a good friend of yours literally lived the whole experience of the Goldbergs. I mean, he's like lived in Jenkintown right there. It's an area of 2 miles for me, but I've really gotten into it. I totally, and it's
I would
funny
say
because
this, Zach, for whatever reason, Wendy McClendon Covey like retweets and likes a lot of tweets that I put out about that show. So,
oh really?
Yeah, there's just something even about her cats. Like we've hit it off about cats great. Too. So
yeah, no, I mean they are. It's really
a good show.
It's funny, and the whole thing of and Kevin has told me like different episodes through the years. So it's funny when I'm watching it, and I run through like something, like the fake girlfriend named Marion Lemieux or whatever from Canada.
Oh yeah.
I keep running into all these things. It really is it has a lot more heart than I thought it would. So
it's interesting, and it's got a hockey connection because they go to Flyers games, and there's an episode about
there was the Hextall goal episode which we just saw the other day,
and the Phillies, there's Eagles episodes, so it's an interesting story.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because I was at the Hextall goal game, and I had and my dad left early for every game, and the only reason that I didn't leave early in that game was my dad was sick, and I decided to drive over by myself to see that game, and I only drove over by myself because I was all mad about I was teaching kids piano, and I got all frustrated by this one person who stiffed me, and I was all frustrated, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go over because we had tickets. And there was like just our game against the Bruins. I'm like, just forget it. I'm driving over. So I went over. I got there at the beginning of the second period, I think, and I saw the Hextall goal game. I was just the dumbest luck in the world.
Well, I'll tell you, Beverly Goldberg and I had a disagreement on Twitter one day because she was bothering her son on Twitter to call him. And I said, well, you see, that's why my mom's not on Twitter. And she goes, well, all moms should be on Twitter. I said, that may be the case, but I don't want to get tweets like that from my mom. No offense.
Yeah, I know.
He has said, the real Adam Goldberg has said that this episode coming up this week, which is eating at a restaurant in Jenkintown, and I've seen restaurants in Jenkintown on the show that I recognize. And he says that it's completely 100% true, and it's his all-time favorite episode.
Oh man,
he said that this week. So
that is something. I'm in season 2, so we're binge watching. We'll catch up soon.
You'll eventually get there.
Great fun. All right, thanks guys. Let's start the show here. Am I still going in and out?
Yes.
No, you're good.
You're better lately, but
You just look pasty now. You're fine.
Well, that's just because they can, All right.
By the way, I mean, I might as well talk about this since we haven't started the show yet. On my podcast that I do with Tom Laidlaw, we brought in a guy, and he moved us off Skype. So we'll talk about it off the air, but he's got a better thing, and the quality did improve. So
there you go.
Really?
Okay.
Okay. I'll do the intro, then I'll log out real fast, and we'll go from there. All right, here we go. It is Wednesday, January 9th, 2018.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
I am Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen of USA Today, and I believe it is Tuesday.
I come to you from the future. I am Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. It's Wednesday somewhere in the world right now. Sure. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I wanted to get you guys into something that I thought was really fascinating because I've been doing I'm getting into buyers and sellers lately. And January 7th, I did my first buyer and seller chart, which I do every year. And I have this formula I do based on how many out they are, how many teams they ask, or how many teams, the amount of cap space they have, and all this fun stuff. Just, math, Russ. I know you love my math things.
Yes.
And the change from December 7th in the Eastern Conference till January 7th is unbelievable. Like there's this incredible, especially in your fine Northeast division or Atlantic
division. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's ironic. I was talking to someone at the Leaf game last night and said, and just off the top of my head, it's like there were 7 teams that I think were realistic sellers. That means it's a buyer's market. I mean, if it's Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, Detroit, Arizona, Edmonton, and Vancouver, and that's just off the top of my head, teams that are going to be buying, there's going to be enough options out there that I think it will drive the prices down. Now, things may change.
I think here's the thing, though. Some will wait till the last minute.
Sure. And
that will affect things. And I think only Edmonton's going to get rid of expiring contracts. I don't think they're making any big deals.
Right.
It's interesting, though. You brought that up, and yet I've talked to a general manager who is a buyer who said to me, how many guys do you think are out there?
Right.
And I said, and he said, because, I'm looking at Detroit and everybody's looking at Detroit. There's one guy. He said, and I'm looking at Buffalo. There's one guy. So he said, maybe there are teams that are available, but he said, they're not a lot of players where, you're trying to, get them. There's not an abundance of players.
That's interesting because, there are players, but not necessarily, star players, there's only a few, but usually the trade deadline has shown us that, third and fourth liners tend to have maybe sometimes even bigger impacts,
Well, his point is there weren't a lot of guys that he felt could help his team.
Right.
Right. Using Detroit as the example, obviously it's Mike Green. There has been some talk about Mrazek, who's an RFA, but again, it's the situation with Robin Leonard in Buffalo. He's an RFA. He's making $4.1 million. If you ask people around here, I don't think many people think Jason Botterill is going to qualify Robin Leonard for $4.5 million next year. So
I think he will. If he,
I don't know, Russ.
Yeah, if he's still on the team, he would be crazy not to. Leonard has had such a good year. Well, I am so tired of people sort of like acting as if he's not having a great year. This guy is playing on a lousy team with a lousy defense. He matched Henrik Lundqvist in the outdoor game. Every game I've seen this year, he's been good, and I've watched Buffalo a lot just because.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't think you're right in the sense that I think they'll trade him if his mindset is I don't want to qualify him at $4.5 million. They called Linus Ullmark up yesterday. He's been playing really well in the AHL. This season is over with for the Sabres. What is the harm in the last 30 to 35 games to find out whether you have a future number one in Ullmark?
There's no harm.
Yeah.
But what's the goalie market? Who are the teams looking for goalies?
Yeah.
The
Islanders are definitely. I think the Islanders would still take
The
one.
Islanders, yeah.
That's really about it because Edmonton was one that was there before, but now it's just they've really
When they did and they made a deal, they got one. So
they got one, yeah, and that was an interesting move. The Oilers are the most interesting team right now, and Oiler fans are insane right now. Like that's what I've noticed in a really, in a good way that Oilers fans are. But Chiarelli is starting to really get hit hard right now.
Yeah, but you know what? I give him credit. He basically said, "Hey, I'm not firing my coach." Now, that doesn't mean he won't get fired and then the coach gets fired.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's looking at it and saying he's blaming the players more than the coach. And I kind of agree with him on that. I do.
I think this is a management fault.
Yeah,
I don't believe Todd McClellan. We all know he's a good coach. We've seen him, and I really have a lot of faith in Peter Chiarelli. But this was a misread of the putt. Everybody thought that this team, including, and we're in the media, we're just as guilty as Chiarelli. Everybody thought this team was good, but we didn't trade, two scorers who can produce 50 goals.
That's what fans are pointing to. Like the last 4 deals, they're saying, but Eberle and Hall.
Yeah, but they were also, those same fans were asking for those guys to be traded. They were.
Right,
yeah, but you don't make deals based on what the fans want.
No, absolutely not. But all I'm saying is, Kev, they're going to complain now, but they were complaining about those guys when they were there.
But Russ,
who cares?
Right.
Who cares what they think then or what they think now? You got to run.
But the complaint is it's very easy to look in to have 20/20 hindsight. But the complaint is regarding Chiarelli and regarding who they traded is you traded Hall for a second pairing defenseman who was being put into a primary top pairing role. And last year, Larson and Clefbaum played great. This year, they're playing terribly, and Larson is playing basically down to what people thought he was when he was in New Jersey. He's not a bad defenseman. He's just not worth a guy who was a top pick overall and who was a top 10 scorer. That's the problem.
Well, that's essentially what I would agree with completely. I just wouldn't get all that worked up about it. But I agree. It was a poor trade. I think. Look, they have looked for a long time. I understood the urgency that Chiarelli felt for that deal, and I think for the better part of last season, it looked okay. They got what they needed. He stabilized the defense a little bit, and the team was playing so well that it looked like it might work out. But now, in the light of day, as is often the case with trades, as we extend it out, now it looks terrible. And the same thing with Jordan Eberle. They react. I think they traded him because I think everybody was just tired of hearing all the fans complain about how poor he is. And look, Eberle didn't help himself.
Right.
But, you still need guys like him. And maybe he didn't produce in the playoffs, but, he gave you 20 goals every year.
And Ryan Strome isn't doing much better than Eberle did last year. So it's, in fact, he's doing
really like that side of the deal. Like, I thought when that deal was made, I think I even said it on this show. Boy, they didn't get what I thought they were going to get for Eberle.
Right.
No, that's true.
So
and the situation in Edmonton is only going to get worse because they're on McDavid's entry level deal right now. The $12.5 million kicks in next year, so they're not going to have a lot of room to maneuver. Plus, I think Talbot's contract is coming up, and his contract is up after the 18-19 season. His play has dropped off precipitously from last year. Last year was a career. It looks like it was a career year. This year he's running into injury problems, and I think he's come back down to earth. They really don't, unless they're going to go with Al Montoya. They really don't have a starting goaltender after Talbot. He's the guy. They have to keep him. And as you said, Kevin, there's the goalie market. Who knows what it's going to be like after next year? So really they're in deep trouble.
We weren't the only one. I mean, let's get started. I mean, like I was reminded by some an angry Oilers fan sent me this, and you guys will like this. I'm going to show it to you. This is an article that came out on Sportsnet right before the season. This was predicting the 2017-18 season via analytics. Okay, our favorite thing in the world.
Oh boy.
Okay, so and this was how they had the Western Conference. Okay, so number 1 is Edmonton. So Edmonton, based on the analytics, Edmonton, comes out at number 1. I don't know what all these different things are because I don't know analytics well enough, I must admit. But San Jose Sharks at number 2, which is interesting because I don't think many of us saw that.
I thought the Sharks would take a half step back, and I had the Oilers up there too.
Yeah,
I think the column on the right is barometric pressure or something like that.
I remember having the conversation where people thought Edmonton was going to the Stanley Cup, and I did laugh at that, but I said, hey, they're a playoff team, and I think they'll go a couple rounds in the playoffs. I did think that, but I never thought Stanley Cup. I just felt like people got too excited. The thing to me that's still got to really change in Edmonton, and I don't even think this is on McClellan, every time I watch that team, McDavid gets into the offensive zone, and then everybody's sort of like, what's he going to do with the puck? Right. And they don't seem to have a plan. And I think this has also hurt McDavid's offensive output too, because he doesn't have that guy that naturally clicks with him, who he could give and go to. He doesn't have a give and go partner at all.
Russ, every team is following the playbook that Anaheim to an extent did in the playoffs last year, and I always talk about that game against the Leafs early last season. That's easy. It's easy enough to say we're going to try to stop McDavid because he's such an immense talent, but teams are being more physical with him. They're basically cutting off his options. Right. And when you do that, there's nothing. I mean, they had to put Puljujarvi and they put Lucic back on that line to sort of protect him and to give him an option instead of having Draisaitl on there. But really, it hasn't helped that much. I think, what are they, Russ? They're like 1-8-1 in their last 10 games.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Look at the Eastern Conference. Okay. At the bottom of the Eastern Conference, number 16, the New Jersey Devils, right? So this is based on analytics.
But they weren't factoring in Will Butcher. They had no stats on Will Butcher, so that they weren't factoring in.
How about Tampa Bay at number 8, for example?
No, but you know what I'm saying? That like some of these, and this is the problem with these projections. Right. Yeah. They don't know who's going to make the team.
Right, and they're basing everything on last season where New Jersey was not a playoff team, and Tampa Bay was out without Stamkos the entire year, and they anybody who had a passing knowledge of hockey knows that Stamkos not being there was a dramatic factor in that team missing the playoffs by 1 point. They with Kucherov, with Stamkos not there for 60 games, they missed the playoffs by 1 freaking point. You telling me? I mean, with Stamkos back healthy, they were going to at least finish in the top 3 in that division and probably win it, and they were going to win that division.
Yeah, I had Tampa Bay winning that division, but I had Edmonton winning the Pacific. I that's what I'm saying. I misread the putt too, but I didn't make the trades either that put them in.
Right.
Right, and the team that I predicted to win the Western Conference right now, I believe, is still out of a playoff spot, but I still think that Anaheim, with everybody back, is going to move into a playoff spot and have a chance.
Yeah, the two sleepers I think you got going right now are Anaheim, which is sort of flying under the radar, but now they're getting everybody back, and people have forgotten already how close they came to getting to the final last year. Yeah. And the other one that I'm stunned that nobody is talking about, and they've played so well, particularly in the last 15 games of the Boston Bruins. Oh my gosh, they played well.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and that was what I was gonna mention this because Boston went on December 7th. I was looking at my formula for buyers and sellers. Right on December 7th, Boston their goal differential was a -3. Okay, that on December 7th they're a -3 goal differential. On January 7th they're a +29.
Yeah,
that's 3rd in the league, by the way.
Yeah, they got well.
I mean, that's astonishing.
They got Backus back. Krejci was out for a little while. He came back. Now they're a 2-line offensive team. They're getting production out of their third and fourth lines. Guys like Dalton Heinen are actually, their defense is a lot more stable now with McAvoy in there, with Carlo. They're just and they're getting phenomenal goaltending out of Anton Khudobin, who last year they were going to cut because he was so bad.
See, the thing is, I get what Kev's saying. We've been talking about him all along, and I never bailed on him when they got hurt. I still don't look at him as that team in that group of teams, Kev. I just think they've gotten to a certain point this year, and I don't know if in the playoffs they're going to get past a certain point. I think they've gobbled up a lot of regular season points in a very weak division. I think they're a good team, don't get me wrong, but I also think that the division has a lot to do with it.
Well, I think they could be this year's Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
If they, they have a much better offense than the Senators had. And McAvoy has really changed. I mean, McAvoy in his first full season, obviously he played in the playoffs, is playing 23 minutes a game.
Yeah. No, he's great.
And I think that gives them, and he's a really comfortable one-on-one defender. And Chara, of course, is an intimidating presence. So I think they have both the offense and the defense, as long as the goaltending, that they could be a surprise. Now, do I expect that to happen? No, but I think it's possible, more so than with some other teams.
Like Anaheim, I did pick to go to the Cup and win the Cup, and I still think they're going to come out of their fog because of the injuries too, and be a very formidable team. Like, I think if they just get to the playoffs, nobody will want to play them.
Well, this is how weird the Atlantic is right now. Because I mean, Boston, I believe they're 2 points or a point ahead of Toronto, but they played like 4 more games. They have 4 games in hand on Toronto, so they're in a good spot if they're going to finish in second place. The Leafs right now, the gap between them and fourth place in the Atlantic is 12 points,
and that has grown drastically since December 7th.
Now they've played more games than anybody, but good luck trying to catch up. There are teams that are 5-6 points out of the playoffs that probably have a minuscule chance of catching up. This is 12 points. You could drive a Mack truck through it.
Just imagine if you could.
December 7th, Montreal was a +2, and now they're a -21. All right, think about that month. I mean, the month that there's some teams have had these incredible months, like to see a 30-point swing in a month on their.
Some team's going to have another great month too that we don't expect. But I think when you look at this, like if the Leafs could only lock down a game, people would actually look at them and say, "Hey, this team could go really far in the playoffs." But they can't lock down a game with their current personnel. It's just
I just wrote about this earlier this morning because Mike Babcock, and I don't know if it's reflective of the fact that he's looking at the standings and seeing that they have this, they're almost guaranteed to finish in third or second, and he can play around with things. But in the last 5 or 6 weeks, I think they've been experimenting with playing what I would call playoff style hockey, playing more conservative, trying to keep teams at the outside, shut down the other team's offense, play a close game. And they got burned yesterday doing that. They were up 2-0 late in the third period against Columbus. And the funny thing was the Leafs were doing the wrong thing. They were trying to score the third goal, and they ended up a bad goal coming the other way, a giveaway. All of a sudden, with 2 minutes left, it's 2-2, and then they lose on a Panarin goal.
Also
in overtime.
Discipline too. They had some bad penalties.
They had some bad penalties, but it's also you have a team that I think is set up to be run and gun. They tried to run and gun in the playoffs last year against Washington. It didn't work. They know they can't run and gun in the playoffs if they play a Boston or a Tampa in the second round if they get by Boston. So Babcock is trying to get them to play what I think he thinks is playoff style hockey, but it doesn't match the personnel that they have. And that's
and you know what? And talking about matching, I will say this though: Torts has become like a prospect whisperer. He's getting so much out of Tyler Mott, and Jordan Schrader, who was a kid I loved out of the draft, has taken a little while, and he's kicked around, and he may have found a home with Torts too. But the other thing is you look at this and you say, God, if Sergei Bobrovsky keeps playing this way, then we're going to be talking about Columbus for a while in the playoffs because they've got everything else in place.
Yeah, but they stopped scoring.
They've struggled. Yeah,
I think they'll have scoring.
I love the Columbus Blue Jackets, but
Yeah.
haven't been watching the same Blue
Yeah,
Jackets.
no, their goal differential. They've gone 20 in the wrong direction as well.
Yeah.
Like in this month. I mean, and then Bobrovsky has played well. Like you're absolutely right. But there are some crazy things like Tampa should just start losing, because right now when you think about where Tampa is in the playoffs, they are looking at Pittsburgh or the Rangers in the first round.
Yeah, but Tampa beats the Rangers now pretty regularly. Like, I'm not saying it's a gimme, but I'm saying that's a bad matchup for the Rangers.
But the 2-3 in Atlantic is not a bad spot for anyone to be.
Yeah, they want to move. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think Tortorella is really frustrated with this team. He has a team that I think he likes and knows could be a really good playoff team, like Russ is alluding to, but they haven't played like that. And I think he can't figure out how to get them back the way they were playing, even last season when they were effective. But this season, they have not been the same team.
Well,
and they're trying to figure it out.
Well, I mean,
getting there though. I think that was a big win yesterday.
Well, Russ, the thing is that they're not getting. Cam Atkinson had that breakout year last year.
Yeah.
He's been hurt. His production is down. They're getting something out of Dubois. Dubois played really well yesterday, but the core offense of that team, other than Panarin, is guys like Nick Foligno and Boone Jenner, who are not big scorers. They really. I mean, if they were going to make a concerted run for the Stanley Cup, that they're the team that should go out and get, the Evander Kane or whoever.
Here's the thing, though. They have a lot of guys. I think it's just a matter of finding the right mix and maybe finding the right young guy to put in. They're still second in the Metro. They may have a 0 differential, but they're still second in the Metro on 5-3-2.
Well, no one's disputing you. We're agreeing with you, Russ. We're just saying they're not playing well. And
I don't know. I think
how to do it. Like your argument against you, but we agree.
I think they're
well
playing
the last 10, but they've played horrible for the 15 before that.
Yeah, Tortorella is trying to get them to play the way you see that team. And,
right. That's true.
And they haven't. He likes that team, and we like that team, but they just haven't played like that.
Russ, he was extolling the virtues of Jordan Schrader in the post game yesterday because Schrader provided a spark on the fourth line. Until that point, they were stonewalled by Frederik Andersen, and they really didn't play good until desperation time in the last half of the third period.
Okay, that's fair. I want to mention something else too with the Rangers Vegas game the other day. That game was a tough game for Ranger fans because they put in Pavlik, so they have the backup in. He benches Buchnevich. They are already missing Kreider. And Kevin Hayes goes out, I think, in the second period for the rest of the game, early in the second. And the interesting thing was Alain Vigneault had this strategy to basically play exactly like the Vegas Golden Knights. And the funny thing is the Vegas Golden Knights are really good at the way they play, and you really can't play the way they play unless you have the right personnel. And with the Rangers missing those guys like Kreider and Hayes, it was the wrong strategy. And that was why they fell to Vegas. So now I could see why some teams really fall victim to Vegas, because if you play the backup goalie, that's kind of dumb because they're really good at home, but you have to play your backup sometime. And then if you just try and play that really, safe game, but also try and just not make mistakes, they're great at that. And that's the thing is teams should really try and counter it. I don't care if you have a team that you expect a certain thing out of. Sometimes you got to change the game plan, especially when there's injuries. They didn't change their game plan at all, and it really hurt the Rangers in that game.
Why doesn't Vigneault like Buchnevich?
Why doesn't Vigneault like a lot of guys? It's just my guess is because he will have the occasional lapse defensively as the offensive player. But again, he's their second highest goal scorer. It's just it's crazy to take him out.
But he hasn't scored in forever. And
no, I know, but you know what, Kev? I think that's a function of the coach getting in his head.
I agree. I wonder why. He keeps pulling him out and dropping him to the third line.
I know.
I think if he kept him on the first line, he would have been an effective player.
Well, I found it laughable, and the machinations going on in Chicago over the last 24 hours. First of all, the patron saint of the analytics crowd, Cody Franzen, was waived, and God forbid that he wasn't claimed. But today, and I don't know who they're playing tonight, but Brent Seabrook is a healthy scratch.
That's amazing.
It's
Yeah,
like,
and Kev, this is the thing. This is not a guy who's at the tail end of his career who's got a year or two left on a contract. He's got 6 more years at almost $7 million, and they're benching him.
I find it so incredible for this reason, though. Like you look at what this guy has given to this franchise in terms of in big games, and he's tied up with years to go into this. And do you really think that embarrassing him like this is going to motivate him? Like I just can't buy that.
Is this a situation where this is like something that talking to Laidlaw, this would be a good thing for Laidlaw. This feels like a situation where Quenneville goes to him behind the scenes and says, "Listen, I'm going to bench you. I'm going to bench you. You're going to be pissed off at me. I'm going to be pissed off at you." And the team's going to get behind you because the team's going to say all the things that we're saying. Like, look at this guy's been there forever. And I wonder, I'm just curious if there's something behind the scenes. I think
that 98% of your conspiracy theories are wacko.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'll give you one conspiracy theory I have. Quenneville's got 2 years left on his deal. He was furious. I mean, furious at the draft. You never see a head coach walk out of the draft after something happens and never come back, especially when it's in your place. And I think there's tension there now between him and Bowman. And I think Quenneville is just trying anything he can to get something going. But I think he's been frustrated since that point to try and get the defense he wants. He doesn't have the defense he wants.
No,
he is. He's so tough on his defenses.
No,
He is.
Like, no matter who, Bowman brings guys in and he just discards them pretty quickly.
True.
And
they got Trevor Daley from Dallas. I think it was in the Patrick Sharp deal, and Quenneville hated him, and they dumped him off on Pittsburgh, and he only won 2 Stanley Cups there.
Right.
Yeah, and he played well for them, and I'll tell you what, he has played well for Detroit too. Been very good for Detroit. He's a good defenseman. I don't know what Joel Quenneville thought he was. Maybe he thought he was going to be more offensive, because if you think Trevor Daley is going to trigger your offense, that's not his game. But he gets the puck out of the zone really well, and he can skate, and it can be an integral part of your attack. He's just not going to lead the offensive charge. But I found this whole thing about Seabrook to be mind-boggling, and I don't know that that's true, Eck, but boy, that makes more sense to me than benching a guy who I saw somebody of note say that he always felt that Brent Seabrook was the de facto captain, that even though he wasn't really the captain, that people viewed him as another captain, that he in that kind of role, that people looked at him as the captain.
Okay, but Kev, we saw Eli Manning get benched, right? That was clearly a mistake.
I
remember.
I guess it is Quenneville, and Quenneville, we all know what a great coach he is. I mean, he is.
Yeah,
I mean,
he is
been successful.
I mean,
I just don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
I really think it's something. It's a big message across the bow. To me, it's something. This is something that and I don't know that he would even go to Seabrook, but I remember, I bring it up with Laidlaw because I remember Laidlaw telling stories about Herb Brooks, and Herb Brooks, would come to him and say, I'm going to pick on you and right now, in different situations, and the team's going to hate me for it. It just feels like this feels like a real veteran coach's move for a team. And then, to do this right after releasing Franzen, who I actually thought played pretty well for them. At least when I saw Franzen playing for them, I thought he was a pretty important player. They would put him out on every power play. And they just waived him.
He can't move anymore, Ack. That's the problem.
I know, but he was still playing every power play.
But then maybe that's a statement on their power play. I don't know
why not bench Jonathan Taves? He's got half the point production he did last year. You going to bench him?
And now you're getting to something because, like I've said before, the people my friends in Chicago who are Blackhawks fans keep saying that what is going on is this war between the Taves side of things and the Kane side of things, and it goes back to Panarin being traded and bringing in Saad, which is basically taking away Kane's guy,
right,
and bringing back Taves' guy,
right. But it was also done because, and maybe you don't worry about things 2 years down the road. They were never going to be able to sign Panarin to another contract. It was 2 years and gone because he's making $6 million now. And he's not a $6 million player. He's an $8 to $8.5 million player. And with Saad, you were getting cost certainty. Now, you thought that you were going to get 30 goals out of him, and he's not producing at the level that you thought. But that was the motivation behind the deal.
And Forsberg was the steal of that deal. We all know that.
There's some, there was logic to that deal. I do think that Bowman and Quenneville do disagree on things, and
I do too,
and often. And I think Quenneville doesn't coach sometimes the way that Bowman wishes he would, and certainly Bowman makes deals that Quenneville wishes he didn't. But I think there was a mutual respect, and I think both of them are great at their jobs.
Yeah, they both had success.
But when it isn't going well, this kind of stuff boils over.
Right.
And it hasn't gone well this season. So
well, here's another stat with another great player, Duncan Keith, 41 games, 0 goals.
Yeah.
I mean,
there are some crazy statistics like that out there. Like, this year there's some crazy team players that like Bufflin just got his first goal the other day. So there's some nuts stuff. But
Brent Burns didn't score for a long time. Yeah.
Now, we'll play the should I game for a second. If you're Chicago, just throwing this out there. This is not a rumor. This is just where you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you can sign Erik Karlsson, do you trade Patrick Kane for him?
No.
Why would you do that? That makes no sense.
I'm just throwing it out there.
No.
Create one hold, with another.
No, but because the reason I say this is I think their defense. It feels like where they're falling. Like that.
But
feels
I still have Duncan Keith. Carlson's not going to make me that much better defensively, and I'm losing all these points out of Kane.
Right.
That's the problem with that.
Yeah,
I'm best offensive player. Yeah.
I know. But you're getting the best defensive player.
Now, if you want to trade Keith for Carlson, I'll talk about that one.
No, but
right.
Plus,
yeah, that's
Carlson's going to cost you more. So you lose your best offensive player.
Right.
Get a dominant defenseman who's going to cost you more than your best offensive player. I don't think so.
Yep.
Right.
No, good. No,
And I heard a commentator out of Toronto talking about Karlsson today, and just blase how I think the Leafs should go after him, and they should trade Mitch Marner in a deal for Erik Karlsson. First of all, Toronto's not doing that, and second of all, Karlsson's got a year and change left in a deal. Why would you trade a guy who's a cornerstone player?
Yeah.
Could be a cornerstone player for you for the next decade for a guy who could walk away. Now if they're going to trade, if any team is going to trade for Karlsson, it's going to be a team that can sign him. But the leverage that Ottawa has when it comes to Karlsson is limited because he's only going to go to a few places. So
I don't think there's any leverage because I think Carlson's made it clear enough that he's going to test free agency no matter what team he gets traded to.
Russ, don't
I get
you think
that feeling?
If he gets traded to a team he likes, you don't think
It doesn't matter. I don't think he's signing. No.
Okay, so you think it's going to be Stamkos? He's going to go. He's going to go to.
He's going to look and just see what's out there.
I would never. I tend to agree with Russ on that, but I never say never. Like
Sure.
If you gave the Maple Leafs an opportunity and they said, "Look, we got Matthews.
Yeah, right.
We got this, we got that, and we're going to give you $12.5 million."
But Lou won't give top of the market money. You know that, Kev.
Well, but you don't know that. He's never been in Toronto. Like I know his history says he won't, but now he's in Toronto, and Lou's a smart guy. Lou is a very smart guy. He's not in New Jersey anymore.
I know, but he still won't.
Different than Niedermeyer or Stevens in New Jersey.
Plus, in the end, when all that haggling about Matthews' entry-level contract came up the year he was drafted, in the end, they gave him the Schedule A, they gave him the Schedule B, they gave him.
That was easy to fall in line with.
No, but he was talking. They were talking about, you're not going to give him all the bonuses.
No, but you know what? He was talking about that. He didn't give Stamkos top of the market money. He didn't. He was holding out on that other part of that deal to give him the rest of the money. He wasn't giving Stamkos all the money when they made an offer to him. He didn't.
Well, they were trying to do a sort of a circumvention of the cap, Russ.
Okay, but I get it. But I mean, that's what I'm saying.
What do you think they got the mayor of Toronto and Canadian Tire?
I know, but I'm just saying with Karlsson, even with a player like that, Lou will not give top of the market money. He won't.
All right, switching gears for a second. Alexei Kovalev in La Presse today comes out and says
two comments right there. You've got two things that are really hard to believe. But go ahead.
Alexei Kovalev in La Presse comes out and says about today's modern NHL. They skate hard, they shoot hard, but there is no creativity, nothing. It's not enjoyable to watch. I don't like how hockey has evolved. This is Alexei Kovalev.
Well, then he should retire. But he
Then
did. So
then
it's
he
good.
should stop. Then he should stop watching hockey and watch
Right.
soccer.
He's
God
already
knows that's
retired.
really
So
exciting
what's
to
the
watch.
point, Alexi?
No one thinks that this is possibly true.
No, I don't.
No.
No.
Mhm.
I think there's more. I think there's more creativity than ever in this league. I think there's more players who are more creative than there were 20, 25 years ago. I mean, no, I think this is.
I do agree with that.
I think he's frustrated. I got to know Kovalev a little bit and would always talk to him when he came through town. And I think he got frustrated with the game because of his skills diminishing. And I think this is a guy who is not happy that he still can't play like Jágr because he's a little younger than Jágr. I think that's what we're dealing with here.
Let me put it this way. When I started covering the league, only about 15% of the players could one-time the puck.
Right.
In the last week, I saw a number 4 defenseman for the Florida Panthers do a spinorama play
Right.
for a spectacular goal.
Yeah.
Okay? And I saw Andreas Antanasiou pull the puck back between his legs just so he could get a shot on goal that he hoped someone would get a rebound.
Right.
That used to be just a practice move, fooling around move. And now he did it, and people looked at it, and it was a logical move. He had no angle in which to shoot the puck. The only way he did is if he pushed it back between his legs, and he knew he couldn't score, but I think he thought there was a chance for a rebound. And I watched the Pittsburgh Penguins come in on the wing and blast pads or shots off pads on an angle to create a wing thing. So don't tell me that today's players aren't.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
Kovalev played last year, right? Last year, I guess, was his last year. I thought maybe he was playing somewhere this year. And he had 10 points in 11 games in the Swiss League. Like, that's, he couldn't hack it when he came back with Florida. He had trouble. And I just think this is a guy who's frustrated.
No, he's always been an odd duck, for sure.
Yeah.
But,
we should talk about
he's always been a smart duck.
Yeah.
Yes. We should.
Oh, yeah. No.
We should talk about a guy who is literally on the trading block and not playing, who is a little older than Kovalev and Jaromir Jágr, who really may have reached the end here. Like, he may have.
Well,
Yeah.
what I don't understand is it sounds like Calgary doesn't want to play him anymore, and there was some sort of unwritten agreement before the season that if you don't want to play me, or it was sort of a handshake agreement or a verbal agreement, that they would mutually terminate the contract. I don't see why. Is it just that Calgary thinks that they can get something from another team?
They're not going to give him up without an asset. So, but they're basically saying go find a deal, and so far he hasn't found a deal.
Yeah, I don't know that he was in Detroit, and there were 4 or 5 of us talking to him, and he was just in a great mood, and it was a lot of fun. And he just said, basically that he said, I got to make all the calls now because it's, basically he just said, people don't have a lot of interest in me. And, the only team that was interested in him was Calgary. So I don't think he has a lot of options. I think it's Calgary or bust. So,
yeah. I guess Florida's not an option to go back to.
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, you got to think, here's the thing. I mean, look, I've watched him this year. He still could control the puck. He still could shoot the puck, still could pass the puck, but he can't play in an up-tempo offense. That's the problem.
And this is an up-tempo league now.
It's an up-tempo league now. This is like just the same way that the NFL has turned into a West Coast offense league. Almost every team wants to be an up-tempo. No, but it's the way it is.
No. I'm just saying
up-tempo league in this in the NHL team rather.
If he retired,
as a Lions fan, I still want him to get a running back. So.
Well, it may be coming back that way, Kevin, because apparently there's a Penn State running back who's going to be a top 2 or top 3 pick in this draft. I'm just frustrated because Buffalo gets to the playoffs for the first time in 17 years and can't score a frickin' touchdown.
All right, the saddest thing about Jágr retiring, sorry to get back to hockey.
Yeah. Back to hockey.
Is that this is the last player retiring that I watched as a kid and a fan. This to me is the guy that I really remember, that I grew up watching, right? And that is really that's a blow to your ego. And
no, I agree with you. I have a special fondness for him. I mean, he was on those early Penguins teams.
Yeah.
The one, the back-to-back cups, and he had the goal where he went around, people joke about, well, he skated through the entire team. Well, Jagr actually did that.
Yeah.
In the Stanley Cup final game. He went around 5 guys and scored a goal. And, he came into the league as a colorful, charismatic, mullet-wearing player, and he left with 1,900 points. Like that. That's incredible. And he left as a colorful player. If this is the end,
and he frustrated the hell out of Mario Lemieux at times. He
frustrated a lot of people. Like he was a lot of fun from the media perspective, but he played on and off the ice, and people thought he could even be better. But in the end, I think he rediscovered his passion for the game, and then he became like a role model. Like the ability, like he said the last time he was in Detroit when I talked to him, I love practice. He said, the anti-Iverson,
Yeah.
I love practice, he said.
The Flyers players fought so hard to keep him here. Like they all went in. I mean, they all went into, it was not not Hextall. It was before Hextall, but they all went in there and they fought to try to keep him here.
But he's a weird, secretive dude. Like you can't go anywhere near his sticks. If you're the stick guy, you're afraid to touch his sticks until he talks to you. Like there's a weird thing. I've watched it go on after games, and these guys, like, they're breaking down the room and they won't touch Jagr's stuff. And I remember the one time I walked into the Flyers room, we got in there a little early, and I caught him with the flak jacket on, and I'm like, "What's that?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And he's like, he's trying to hide the fact that he's training with a flak jacket on with weights because he's trying to get in better shape. And and then he came clean on it. But like, he's always doing these little things behind the scenes and always makes him sort of like mysterious, like the most interesting hockey player alive.
He's going to make a great coach. I think he's going to make a great assistant coach.
Well, you never disputed his talent. I always made a comparison with him between, like, he's the George Foreman of hockey in the sense that I never thought he was he was not a very likable player in terms of fans watching. The whole salute thing. His talent was immense, but when he came back from the KHL, there was something very likable about him. Something, it was a great story. He still could play the game. I mean, hell, I remember it was in '99 when he played the Leafs, and it was the salute thing. And after the Leafs had scored a overtime goal to win the series, Danny Markov, Leafs defenseman, turned right around and saluted him right back. And that was like, you loved that antagonism. Yeah. When he came back, he was a different player. And what's that?
You would have told me, Mike, that same guy who played for the Capitals is going to become a Ranger and set the all-time season scoring record for that franchise. I would have laughed at you. I would have been like, "Come on, man! You're getting crazy."
Kevin, is he a coach at some point, do you think?
I don't know. That doesn't seem like something he'd want to do. I will say, if I can practice amateur psychology without a license, which I've been known to do, I worry about him after he leaves the game.
Sure.
Like, he has been a player for, like, there's little Peter Pan syndrome here. Like, he loves the game, and the boy, he has this boyish passion for it. And I bet he has no plan for what he's going to do.
Yeah, he doesn't have a plan. No way.
I really hope he's
done. And I wonder that he's going to wake up. He's going to be 50 years old, and he's missed out on the regular life aspect of his program. Mm-hmm. Like, what regular life does he have? Like, most players have, gotten married and have a family. They have a regular life and they have an NHL life. And I don't know that he's done any of that. And it's all been pro hockey life. And I wonder how is he going to crash emotionally when this is done? I mean,
interesting.
I hope not.
I think he'll be like his legendary friend and mentor, Ivan Halenka, who clearly was a guy that Jagr wanted to have him coach him and did until he got traded. And I think down the line he will do some little things to stay around the game, even if he's not a head coach. I think he only knows hockey, so he will stay around it. Like, he owns a team, right? So he'll go to that.
He owns Kladno, right? Doesn't he own Kladno?
Yeah. And so, but I think he'll do something in the NHL. I do.
I think
my favorite Jagr story is I went to interview him one time, and I sat down next to his cubicle, and I knew him okay. and he sat down and he had to. It wasn't a Rubik's cube, but it was sort of a puzzle, and he was fooling around because I got to play with this before we start, and he just couldn't get it. And he handed it to me and said, "I'll give you $100 if you can solve this." And he really did, and I had no clue of how to do it. And then he goes, just a minute, he says to me, and he walks to the center of the room in the old Penguins practice facility, and he stands up and he goes, "I'll give $100 to any member of the media or any player who can solve this for me." And that's what he did. I mean, needless to say, I led with that in my story.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I remember interviewing him and him saying, it just out of nowhere, it was not even a question. He just said, "But I'm not as good looking as Claude Giroux." He said that flat out, like that kind of thing. It's just a completely.
I remember at the All-Star game in Dallas when he was still with Washington, that he was not at the media area for interviews, and all of a sudden, about halfway in or 3/4 in, I noticed him slipping in the back door. And I went over, and a few of us got to interview him, but he was there for like 15 minutes, and that was just like him. Like, he just snuck in. Like, he didn't want to be part of like the whole big contingent, but then he snuck in and sort of had his moment, and that's what he's like.
Well, he could be moody. I mean, he was not always a great interview.
The first time I met him, I thought he was just a total ass. Like because I was in Nashville, a Nashville Rangers game. The first game I went to Nashville ever to cover, and it was the Rangers Nashville game right before he went back to Russia. And it was I went in because this is my first chance to actually see Jágr, so I'm going to go try to talk to him, try to interview him. And he was a total jerk. Like he was completely like just to everybody in the room, like not just
Anson Carter was not a fan. Anson Carter told me he wasn't a fan of Jágr, actually. And I remember asking him for a book, like if he enjoyed, like would laugh at what Jágr would do, sort of hiding on the bench and then just coming out on the ice for any old line. And he said, "Yeah, if you were a teammate of that, he didn't like that."
Yeah.
No.
Right. All right. That's all the time we have for today, guys. But thanks so much. Quick show. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm gonna wake up and be 50 in 3 days. So hey.
I wish I could wake up and be 50. Stop complaining.
I know.
I've been that for 7 months. It's not all it's cracked up to be.
It's scaring me, man. It's scaring me.
I'd love to be 50.
That's what I'm saying.
I'd love to be 60. So
I don't know what it is. It's funny, like turning 50. Like the thing that's hit me more than turning 50 is my friends turning 50. I don't know why that is, but like every time one of my friends turns 50, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's 50 or she's 50, and then anyway, it's gonna be nuts. But thanks guys for watching. Remember to enjoy. You can enjoy the podcast. Please subscribe on YouTube and tell your friends as well. We appreciate it. And comment in the threads. There were some good comments I didn't get to today. There's some good questions we'll get to at some point here that I had written down in the comment threads. So
the bad comments are the ones that say I hate Mike.
Yeah, no, actually, there was one that said he always loves your views on the Leafs, Mike. So you're wrong.
Yeah.
Remember that the buzz is just hockey, everyone. We will talk to you tomorrow.